Okay. Um, Good evening and salutations, my J's fans. Okay. So let's get the whole Felicia thing out the way. I I feel bad for the actress. I feel like there's times where they just kind of throw her in situations where it just seems so really necessary to be here. Over the years, I have sat there and said how some characters I find to be kind of useless. And I've been reminded by people like Nikisha that, not every character can have a front center story. There's supporting cast and everything like that for a reason, right? But you watch the episode today, and she brings up the whole. She came over there because she was like, Mac needs your help. Mac needs you to talk to Sonny and convince him to stand down on his fight when he decide to vote for his peer, property and everything. The one thing that came to mind was, is there a particular reason why Matt couldn't sit there and just be here to tell you that himself as opposed to sending you here to do it? You know? Like, I feel like we're going to have more of these scenes, and part of me is like, okay, Bobby and Felicia were close. She's looking out for her in a sense. So, more times than not, I can kind of let it go. But then the other part of me is just like, the minute that I see him, I was like, oh, goody, it's Felicia. Really nice if we just would have got Mac instead of you. Here's the thing, I don't have anything against her. It's just, this is not the first time that she's just kind of been there for reasons unknown and being like, oh, okay, Felicia, I know that you've been on the show for a while, but I just feel like there's so many times where it's just like, she's just an unnecessary character, just being there to be there. You know? Oh well, we need you to sit there and talk to Sonny. What? Oh, because it's going to be bad for Laura. Listen, let me tell you something. At this point, Laura done practically screwed her political career a long time ago by not distancing herself from Sonny. This whole we share a grandson, blah 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 blah. I don't want to hear it. Okay, Laura dug her own grave a long time ago. So having him snip this in, well, we need some. No, Sonny's not going to sit there and back down, and he shouldn't have to back down. Okay, Laura made her bed. She needs to sit there and just deal with it. But then she talks about how if he can give up the peers, then somehow he could sit there and get away from organized crime. So we're talking about pipe dreams now, right? Because I'm pretty sure he tried to walk away more than once, and that just didn't happen. Anyway, he leaves. Lucas comes over. Now Lucas is like, yo, listen, it's Jason gunning for Marco, and tells him about the connection with Sitwell. Harry's like, oh well, you can't sit there and be with him at that point. Harley, how would you like it if another woman's mother or whatever, told their daughter, you shouldn't be with Michael because Sonny is his father? Yeah, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't like that. So I feel like it's kind of an out of pocket thing for her to even sit there and bring up. Then you have the flip side of Alexis talking to Marco, and Alexis being so out of pocket that I'm kind of just like, Marco, you're going to bring a really good client base, money, and things of that nature to this firm. And long story short, they need you more than you need them. Okay. She's not there going on and whining about how you didn't sit there and tell us about your father. Did you sit there and ask any other candidates about their family tree? And by the way, the last time I checked, Alexis, you're a Cassidon, right? And he pretty much kind of schools her on the fact that, like, yo, listen, you don't sit there and go around advertising your name is Cassidon. Hell, you go by Davis, as a matter of fact. Because you don't want to sit there and get judged on your family's terrible history. So why are you coming at him that way hard is just beyond me. Not to mention the fact that when she does sit there and bring up Marco's father, who's never been arrested once or not one of his other clients, he has to sit there and say, we're really going to sit there and talk about dangerous client bases? You know, Sonny and Jason got a arrest record a mile long. You sure you want to have this conversation? You would almost sit there and think that she's never been in a debate whatsoever. Because it was almost kind of painful to watch. I was just like, yeah, the only thing you're highlighting is how much you need him. We're going to do an extensive, sure, whatever. You go and you do that. At the end of the day, it's your loss in another firm's game. So screw the pooch as you want. Now, Lulu was in this episode. Lulu was a pointless character in this episode. You know, I've said multiple times that she just had a way of just. And okay, yes, I understand somebody's going to sit there and say, but it's Dante's party. Well, they didn't have Charlotte there, they didn't have some other people there. What was the point of Lulu being there today, other than being Dante's ex? Now, there's a lot going on at that party, and I just cannot get to every single detail. We'll talk about more tonight, but just some of the stuff that I've, wrote down. Um, Rocco don't want Sonny going to his debate because it's already looking bad for Laura, right? And Sonny overhears this, and Sonny's like, no, listen, it's cool, I understand. I'll sit this one out. Rocco feels bad, but it is what it is. Now, at some point, Olivia overhears it, and Olivia starts scolding him. I'm like, Olivia, if he can't come to the debate, then he can't come to the debate. You being all pissy and it's unnecessary, right? But then, Dante is like, why don't you just sit there and tell her? Well, because then she's gonna be upset with Rocco. No, she won't. No, she won't. I think that if you sit there and explain it to her of why he can't go, why he shouldn't go, she would understand. She would not be sitting there being upset with Rocco. So that really does not make any sense. It just seems like an unnecessary amount of drama. Um, Still doing chem tests as I see, because Molly's car done got a flat. The tow truck could be coming now or anytime forever, and Cody comes in with his horse, and it's like, why don't you hold the horse or whatever while he looks at the tire. One of the things he does sit there and say to Molly is like, yo, listen, you need to be calm, because if you're not calm, the horse is going to pick up on that, and that's not going to be good. And that is very true, right? Anyway, he convinces her, get on a horse, or you may be in for a horror movie. It's getting late, it's dark. And part of me is like, but you have a phone, right? You could just call a rideshare. And that's one of the things he did sit there and say, but she's like, no, 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 no. I'd rather get on a horse named Hades, who I'm clearly afraid of. And, he grabs her, and that's part of their thing. So, they're going to be a thing. So there's that, right? Now we got Brooklyn and Chase. Two characters that I really don't care about. But I'm not going to be a negative Nancy about this. I will sit there and say that they go through the options as far as adoption because, I'm just kind of, I don't know. I don't really care about Chase whining that he can't get her pregnant. I don't. I think that Chase is being out of pocket and a bully, and I think that Brooklyn is still being trifling. So that's my feelings on that. But one of the things he did sit there and say, we'll give the writers props for this. They talk about adoption. Chase is like, let's get an older child. And Brooklyn brings up Emily. Emily was 12 when she got adopted, and they don't usually tend to adopt older children. They usually tend to adopt younger babies and stuff. So they agree on that, and like, okay, it's a nice little callback to Emily. And also just highlighting a problem with adoption as far as people tend to go for younger, and the older kids just kind of, you know, lose out usually. Um, wow, am I done? No, I'm not done yet. Curtis and Jordan. Curtis wants to know what's going on because he felt like what she did, what Jordan did, the way she did it was not like her. And one of the things he says is, the last time you sat there, you act like that, you were undercover. Now he presses the issue. He presses the issue. At first, she tries to give him reasons why she quit. They weren't entirely wrong, but she ultimately says, "I don't want to lie to you." That's how we. That's how our relationship didn't work out. And I really don't like how she tries to um, let him off the hook. Because in all reality, the reason why the relationship didn't work was because Curtis was an asshole. There are certain things about her job that she can't sit there and share. And then there was the whole TJ thing, right? TJ got kidnapped. She couldn't sit there and tell him because TJ's life was in danger. And he acted like, oh, well, you should have told me anyway. He was very unreasonable, very unfair. He wasn't understanding. And I don't like how she tries to make it seem like, oh, it's because of my lies. Don't do that. Do not sit there. That's what annoyed me. It's like by her saying that she let him off the hook and she rewrote history to try to make herself come across as, well, I'm the reason. I'm the bad guy. And you weren't the bad guy. You really were not the bad guy. It was Curtis that was the bad guy. And I do not like that revision. No, we're not doing that. Anyway, he respects um just letting it go, but says, listen, I'm gonna be here for you. So if you need me, cool. Now I feel like that's about it. Now there are obviously things that I might have missed here or there. Oh, and towards the end, there's the whole scene with Danny, Gio, and Rocco talking about the online stuff with Sonny and everything, and Danny being like, listen, it's probably good that Sonny is not at your debate because it will look bad for Laura. Yep, because we got to sit there and protect Laura from her poor choices. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what we're doing. All right, now I feel like we're done. If I missed anything, write in the comment section below. Come to the live stream tonight. I'll be sitting there streaming for about an hour since I do have to wake up uber early in the morning. But, we'll talk about all the stuff that I did not bring up today, as well as the other four soaps. They are 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and that'll be the time of the live stream. See you in the next video.